My hands tremble slightly as I type this, not from regret, but from a profound sense of injustice. They say karma's a bitch, but honestly, it feels like the universe just singled me out for a special kind of cruelty. This isn't a confession in the penitent sense. This is a testament to how utterly unfair life can be. Especially when you're a good person who just wanted what was best. It started subtly, as these things always do. Mark. Always working late. Always putting in extra hours for the promotion. Always making ends meet. Ends meet? We had a nice house, a decent car, and sure, I could buy the occasional designer scarf. But was it the life I deserved? Was it the effortless luxury I saw others enjoying? No. It was a constant reminder of how much more he should be doing, how much more he could be providing if he truly valued me. When we first met back in college, he was utterly smitten. It was obvious. I was the bright, effervescent girl from a comfortable background, and he was the diligent, slightly awkward guy who seemed amazed that someone like me would even look his way. He promised me the world, not in words perhaps, but in his intense dedication, his unwavering gaze, his eagerness to please. I saw a future of security, of ease, of being cherished and provided for. He was a safe bet, a stable foundation upon which I could build the life I was always meant to live. He seemed to understand that my worth wasn't just in what I did, but in who I was: beautiful, intelligent, discerning. But somewhere between the vows and the mortgage, that understanding warped. He became consumed by responsibility, by climbing the ladder, by the mundane grind of his accounting firm. Our sprawling four-bedroom house in the affluent suburbs, meant to be my sanctuary, became a monument to his absence. He was present just enough to sign checks and fix leaky faucets, but never enough to truly see me. He'd come home after 9 p.m., sometimes even 10, smelling faintly of stale office coffee and something vaguely chemical, probably copier toner. The scent was a daily assault, a constant reminder of where his true loyalty lay. He'd flop onto the couch, too tired to even string a coherent sentence together, let alone engage with me. His eyes, once bright with admiration, were now dull, perpetually exhausted. "Long day, honey," he'd mumble, eyes already glazing over, half focused on some financial news channel. And I'd watch him, a knot of resentment tightening in my stomach, a familiar bitter taste coating my tongue. Was he really working? Or was there someone else? Could anyone truly be that tired, that dedicated, without another, more exciting, more illicit motivation? The thought gnawed at me, festering in the quiet solitude of our evenings. It wasn't paranoia, it was intuition. A woman's intuition, sharp and unerring. A man who suddenly dedicates every waking hour to his job, who's too exhausted for his wife, who smells different. It screams infidelity. He said he was making ends meet, that his efforts were for us, for our future. But what kind of future was this? A future where I sat alone in a half-decorated house, eating takeout because he was too busy being a provider? He'd insist on cooking on weekends, usually something bland like chicken and steamed vegetables, completely oblivious to my sophisticated palate, another sign he simply didn't know me anymore. It felt less like provision and more like neglect. A calculated, subtle abandonment, designed to wear me down, to make me subservient to his boring ambitions. So I started looking. I wasn't being irrational. I was being proactive, a woman protecting her interests. A woman has to protect herself, especially when her husband becomes a ghost in his own home, leaving her to interpret his shadowy movements. I checked his phone when he left it charging, a quick glance just to see. Not that I expected him to be stupid enough to leave blatant evidence. Nothing overtly damning, of course. He was too smart for that. Just endless work emails, boring texts from colleagues, nothing suggestive. But the lack of anything incriminating only made me more suspicious. It meant he was good at hiding it. Too good. It proved he was deliberately concealing something. I once found a crumpled receipt in his coat pocket from a coffee shop near a part of town he never usually went to. It was for 2 lattes. 2. He only ever drank black coffee. I confronted him calmly, of course. Mark, whose latte was this? I held it up, watching his face. He actually blushed. Oh, that was for Brenda from accounts. We had an early meeting, and she forgot her wallet. Brenda, who was always far too friendly at company events, with her tight skirts and overly loud laugh. I scoffed internally. A likely story. He was a terrible liar, but I let it go, filing it away as further proof. I asked him about it, casually at first, my voice laced with a subtle challenge. You've been spending a lot of time at the office, Mark. Everything all right? Or is there something else keeping you so busy? He'd just sigh, rub his temples as if he was the one being put upon. Just busy, honey. You know how it is. It's a big project, crucial for my career. I'm trying to get this promotion so we can finally pay off the rest of the student loans and look at that renovation you want. His career. Always his career. Always some distant, unfulfilling goal. Never us. Never my immediate needs for connection, for presence, for a partner who wasn't constantly half asleep. The renovation, by the way, was something he wanted, not me. I just wanted a better life, and he always twisted it back into some mundane project. My friends Jen and Chloe were my anchors, my lifeline. They listened, they validated, they understood the silent suffering. They lived in similar cages, albeit with different decor. We'd meet for our weekly brunches, or our wine and wine evenings, and the conversation would inevitably drift to our husbands, or rather, their profound failings. He's probably got a little something on the side, Jen would say, her eyes narrowed, sipping her espresso martini with a knowing smirk. Men always do when they start acting too busy and too tired. It's their classic move. They think we're stupid. Chloe, softer and more traditionally feminine, but just as prone to her own marital grievances, would add, it's classic. They create a smokescreen of work, so you won't notice them sneaking around. My John is constantly on calls in the garage. Like, who talks for 2 hours straight in a freezing garage? And I'd nod, a bitter satisfaction curling in my chest. See, it wasn't just me. They saw it too. He was clearly cheating, or at the very least, emotionally abandoning me for something more stimulating than his own wife. Which, frankly, felt like a betrayal just as deep. The loneliness became unbearable. The coldness in our king-sized bed, the empty chair at dinner that seemed to mock me, the sheer absence of him, even when he was physically present. I was a vibrant, desirable woman, wasting away in a marriage to a workaholic phantom who prioritized spreadsheets over intimacy. I deserved passion. I deserved attention. I deserved to feel alive, to be worshipped, not merely accommodated. That's when I met Liam. He was everything Mark wasn't. Spontaneous, attentive, he actually listened when I spoke, not with that glazed-over exhaustion, but with genuine interest. He looked at me like I was the most fascinating creature on earth, a rare jewel. We met at a charity gala I volunteered at, something Mark had encouraged me to do to fill my time. Of course, as if my life revolved around his schedule. Liam worked in marketing. He was dynamic, charming, and he dressed impeccably, his suits sharp, his ties always silk. He saw me. He saw my brilliance, my wit, my beauty, everything Mark had grown too dull to notice, too absorbed in his spreadsheets to appreciate. Our conversation started innocently enough, just polite exchanges about the event, the philanthropy, the mundane small talk. Then they moved to coffee, then lunch. He made me laugh, truly laugh, for the first time in years, a deep, unrestrained belly laugh that felt like a release. He complimented my dress, my hair, the way my eyes sparkled when I spoke about my dreams Mark had long since dismissed as frivolous, impractical, not financially viable. Liam, on the other hand, encouraged them, even offered to connect me with people in his network. He remembered the brand of wine I liked, the specific way I took my coffee, something Mark, after years, still struggled with. It was the little things that screamed volumes. It escalated, yes. Quickly. Was it right? In a perfect world, perhaps not. But what was I supposed to do? Sit at home and wither, slowly fading into obscurity, while my husband, who was clearly off gallivanting with some secretary or simply neglecting me for his endless work, left me to rot in this gilded cage? I was simply reclaiming a piece of myself, a piece he had so carelessly discarded, so completely overlooked. It wasn't cheating, it was survival. It was a cry for validation in a desert of indifference, a desperate reach for the warmth I deserved. He wasn't giving me what I needed, so I found someone who would. It was his fault, really. He drove me to it. My needs were simply too grand, too profound for his limited capacity. Liam understood. He knew I was in a complicated situation, a phrase I used to delicately explain Mark's emotional unavailability and presumed infidelity, painting him as the distant, unloving spouse. He was patient, kind, and incredibly generous with his time and affection, never once pressuring me, always making me feel cherished. With Liam, I felt desirable again, adored, seen for the woman I truly was. We'd meet at his chic downtown apartment, or sometimes for clandestine dinners in quiet, dimly lit restaurants across town where we wouldn't be recognized. I'd come home feeling invigorated, alive, ready to face Mark's weary indifference with a renewed sense of self-worth. The stark contrast between Liam's vibrant presence and Mark's dull absence became my daily fuel. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I was meticulously crafting my narrative of Mark's supposed cheating, gathering evidence, like his late-night calls to his boss, which I interpreted as secret rendezvous, or the faint scent of a different perfume on his shirt that was probably just a client, I was simultaneously orchestrating my own secret life, a vibrant, exhilarating escape. I'd grill him about his schedule, my voice dripping with feigned concern. "Oh, another late night, Mark? Is she keeping you busy at the office? Or is it just the spreadsheets this time?" I tried to inject a knowing tone, a hint of suspicion, hoping he'd crack, hoping he'd confess to the phantom woman I was so convinced existed. He never did. He just looked bewildered, apologetic. "Honey, there's no she. It's the quarterly report. I told you about this. We're trying to land a big new client. It's all hands on deck." His innocence, his pure, unadulterated beta nature, only fueled my conviction that he was an excellent liar, a master manipulator covering his tracks with an air of pathetic sincerity. Or perhaps that he was so oblivious he didn't even realize he was cheating, emotionally if not physically. Which, in my book, was even worse. A dull, oblivious cheater was far more insulting. The charade continued for months, a delicate dance of deception and self-justification. Every time he worked late, every time he seemed distant, every time he chose his laptop over a conversation with me, my suspicions solidified into unshakable certainty. He was having an affair. I knew it. I saw the signs, even if they were only visible to me. I even went as far as hiring a private investigator just for a week. A significant expense, but worth it for peace of mind, for proof. He found nothing, of course. "Mr. Peterson appears to be exclusively focused on his work, madam," the dry voice on the phone informed me, devoid of any discernible emotion. "No extracurricular activities noted. His evenings are spent primarily at the office, followed by direct travel home." I scoffed into the receiver. "He's clearly very good at covering his tracks, isn't he?" I'd replied, dismissing the PI as incompetent, perhaps even in cahoots with Mark. The universe was clearly conspiring against me, making it impossible to prove what I knew to be true, making me look crazy. The tension at home grew thick enough to cut with a knife. Our conversations became clipped, laden with unspoken accusations from my side, subtle barbs he seemed too dense to fully grasp. "Are you happy, Mark?" I'd ask, watching his reaction, hoping to see a flicker of guilt. He'd hesitate, his brow furrowed with confusion. "Of course I am, honey. Just tired. Tired. Always tired. Never happy." Never in love. Never with me. Just endlessly, monotonously tired. It was infuriating. I started leaving his favorite meals to spoil in the fridge when he missed dinner. A silent protest. He just apologized for his late return and offered to clean it up. So frustratingly compliant. One evening, after another particularly unsatisfying dinner with Mark's silent, exhausted presence, he'd actually fallen asleep on the couch while I was telling him about my day. I sent Liam a desperate text. Need to see you. Now. Can't take it anymore. He was there within the hour, my knight in shining marketing brochures. We spent the night at his place. It was liberating, defiant. I was taking control of my own happiness, my own destiny. I deserved this. I deserved him. The next morning I woke up in Liam's bed, feeling lighter than I had in years, the scent of fresh sheets and a different cologne, a stark, pleasant contrast to my own stale home. I checked my phone. A text from Mark, mundane and apologetic. Rough night at the office. Big deadline pushed. Coming home soon. Let's talk? Need to clear the air. Talk? What was there to talk about? His betrayals? My need for happiness? My burgeoning, vibrant new life? I slipped out of Liam's apartment, a thrill of danger mixing with the cool morning air. I arrived home feeling refreshed, empowered, a warrior who had just returned from a successful campaign. Mark was there, oddly. He was usually gone by this time, back to his precious office. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand. His face was gray, his eyes hollow like he hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, a tone I had never heard from him before. It sent a tiny shiver down my spine. Really talk? I sighed, already bracing myself for another one of his tiresome attempts at connection. Another lecture about budgets or missed opportunities. Mark, I'm tired. It's been a long night. Can we do this later? I really need a shower. I hoped he wouldn't press. I needed to wash away Liam's scent, to compose myself, to put on my brave, long-suffering wife facade. He held up his phone. My heart plummeted. On the screen was a photo of me, clear as day, entering Liam's building last night. My face was clear, unmistakable, caught in a moment of unguarded anticipation. And the timestamp. It was exactly when I told him I was going to a late yoga class. Liam, isn't it? He said, his voice dangerously quiet, a tone I never knew he possessed. The marketing guy from the charity gala. I knew something was different about you. The sparkle in your eyes, the sudden late nights you started having, the renewed energy you came home with. I just thought, I hoped, it was because you were finding happiness in life again, perhaps through new hobbies. Not this. His eyes, which had been dull and resigned for so long, suddenly sharpened. They were cold, hard, dissecting me, seeing every lie, every hidden truth. I was starting to think I was going crazy. With how much time I was spending trying to give you everything you wanted. I questioned myself every single night, thinking I wasn't enough. Turns out I was just blind. My mind raced, scrambling for an explanation, a defense. How? How did he know? The PI. The incompetent PI. He must have been working for Mark all along. No, that didn't make sense. Mark was too beta, too unassuming, too pussy to be so cunning, so calculated. This was a fluke. Coincidence. He must have just gotten lucky. It's a mistake, Mark, I stammered, the words tumbling out before I could censor them. A desperate, pathetic attempt to reclaim control. A moment of weakness. I've been so lonely. You're always at work. You're never here. I thought you were cheating on me. I was trying to cope, trying to feel something, anything, other than that crushing loneliness. My voice rose, tinged with genuine self-pity. His eyes, which had held a raw, devastating pain, quickly replaced by something I hadn't seen in years, steel. They bore into me. Lonely? I worked 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week for us. For this life. For your comfort. To keep this house, your car, your expensive tastes. You thought I was cheating? While you were doing this. He gestured vaguely at the phone, at the photo, at my very being, at the entire sham of our marriage. You spun a fantasy of my infidelity to justify your own. You manipulated yourself into believing a lie, so you could betray me without a conscience. His voice was low, controlled, almost clinical, utterly devoid of the usual wavering. It was terrifying. This wasn't the Mark I knew, the soft, easily manipulated man. This was someone entirely new, someone formidable, someone I had utterly underestimated. I needed attention. I pleaded, tears finally welling up. Genuine tears of self-pity and frustration. You weren't giving me anything. I felt neglected. It was a cry for help. A desperate attempt to salvage my own happiness. He stood up slowly, deliberately, looming over me. A cry for help? You call betraying our vows, mocking our future, and actively trying to ruin my reputation a cry for help? I was trying to build a future, a stable life for the woman I married. For you. While you were systematically dismantling it, all the while creating fantasies of my infidelity to justify yours. You didn't need help, you needed an excuse. And you found one, in your own warped perception of reality. His voice remained level, yet each word was a hammer blow. I sacrificed years. My time, my energy, my very well-being for what? To be ridiculed, doubted, and cheated on by the very person I was working for. The divorce proceedings were a nightmare. My mistake defense was shredded. He had everything. Not just the damning photo and timestamp, but a detailed log of my spending, my increasingly extravagant purchases, my casual dismissals of his efforts to make ends meet, all neatly documented. He had recordings, discreetly captured from his home office, where I'd talked to Jen and Chloe about his meager paycheck, and how I deserved better, how he was such a beta pussy. He had his own diligently kept work logs, proving his long hours and his consistent effort. He even had the private investigator's report that confirmed his own fidelity, which he presented as irrefutable evidence of my baseless accusations and manipulative behavior. My lawyer, a sleek, sharp woman named Brenda who I'd thought was so astute, looked at me with increasing bewilderment, her confidence visibly faltering. He's very thorough, Mrs. Peterson. Alarmingly so. He's built an undeniable case. Alarmingly so? This was Mark. My beta pussy Mark. How could he have transformed into this legal juggernaut, this cold, calculating adversary? He had clearly been observing, absorbing, planning while I was simply living my life. It was a cruel, twisted form of passive aggression. He didn't yell. He didn't rant. He didn't even raise his voice in court. He just presented facts, calm and steady, with an almost terrifying precision. Every accusation I had ever thrown at him, every casual insult, every cutting remark I'd made about his masculinity or his earning potential, was meticulously documented and used against me. The court saw not a victim, but a calculating, entitled woman who had deliberately engaged in infidelity and defamation. They saw him as the wronged party, the one who had been patiently building while I tore things down. When the final judgment came down, I was stunned, utterly floored. It wasn't just the house or the car or the majority of the savings. It was the public humiliation. The way the judge's words, cold and clinical, stripped away my carefully constructed facade of victimhood, leaving me exposed and vulnerable. Mark, the beta husband, had systematically, calmly, and utterly ruined me. He walked away with the house, his reputation not just intact but enhanced, and a quiet, almost serene dignity that infuriated me to my core. I was left with nothing but my shattered pride, a mountain of legal bills I couldn't possibly pay, and the chilling realization that my mistake was, in his eyes, an act of calculated cruelty that he had patiently, methodically, devastatingly avenged. And now here I am, alone in a cramped, overpriced apartment, trying to rebuild a life that felt deserved but was utterly snatched away. They say he's thriving, got a big promotion even. His career is skyrocketing. And I'm left to pick up the pieces, wondering how I, the one who deserved so much more, who was so clearly the victim of his neglect, ended up with so little. It's not fair. It's just not fair. I was the victim, truly. I just wanted to be happy. He just wouldn't let me.